What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you the second deck on the poll, and that is of course Ashened. So Ashened's got some amazing new support for the deck, and massive shout out to Charlie, who was able to provide me some extra spice for the deck. Now when I saw it I was like, yo, that's crazy. I love how that synergizes with the deck, and it basically all comes off of the back of Fusion Arraignment. Now Fusion Arraignment will actually give you access to your Vidos, but it can also give you access to another card from the extra deck that can set you up a form of negation. I'll take you through that as we go through the profile to show you exactly where that spice lies, and it is worthwhile because it does provide you with a form of negation as well. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So again, massive shout out to Charlie. I take no credit on the spice whatsoever. I thought it was just such a great inclusion to the deck. And I was like, wow, okay. And the best thing about it is when you find spice, it's just like a common card in the past. It's not crazy expensive, and it does catch a lot of people off guard. So diving in headfirst into the profile, you start off with 3 of the Vidos, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction. This is your core card. The only way you can search this is by going through the Infernal Flame Banshee at the moment in time, because Bonfire was level 4 or lowers, but it is so important for the deck. It is your main boss monster. You're going to be able to recycle it from the graveyard, and you're going to be using it as a core component for your fusion summons of the brand new Vidos, the Dragon of Endless Darkness. I'll talk more about this guy when we get to the extra deck, but the idea is this is your main boss monster, and a lot of people instantly when they saw the new support was like, oh, this is garbage. But what you need to remember is the field spell turns all of your opponent's monsters into pyro during your turn, and the brand new trap card in the deck turns all of your opponent's monsters to pyro during their turn. So it gives you the ability to technically contact fuse or super poly your opponent's entire board, which is insane. Carrying on, of course, we do have 3 Priestess. This is the core component of the deck that is not the boss monster, because this is the one that if Ashened, or all of them share the same effects, that if Ashened forbiddens the Ashen City, Obsidian, the Ashen City, get there eventually, is face out in the field value, you get to special summon them from the hand for free. If this card is normal or special, you get to add an Ashened card from the deck to the hand. Unfortunately, this does not have Ashened in its text, which is the biggest issue, because if it did have Ashened, great success. Now for the change up of the lineup for the rest of them, we're only playing the 1 King, the 1 Hero, and then 1 of the 2 brand new Shaman and Spearhead. Now Spearhead is arguably cuttable if you want to. I actually quite like Shaman because I felt that through the first wave of support I was burning through resource quite quickly, and I actually really love the artwork on this one. So if the Obsidian City is in the field zone, again, you get special in its hand for free. You get to target 3 of your Pyro monsters that are banished and or in the graveyard, shuffle them into the deck. Then if you shuffled an Ashened monster, you get to add an Obsidian City from the deck to the hand. You can only use each effect once per turn, and it's so important with this deck because it does revolve around the field spell so much that being able to get it back is really, really important. Now, it's a shame it only targets 3 Pyros. I'd probably be a lot happier if it said target 3 Ashened cards, because then you could put back the City, but then you wouldn't be able to put back the Vidos, so a bit of give and take. Spearhead, again, if the field spell is in play, you get to special on it for free. But if your opponent controls a monster with 2800 or more attack, which you can do because you give them Vidos, you get to tribute this card and then target 1 card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. So again, you can target the Vidos, bounce it back to your hand, and then that gives you the resource to use Vidos again. So for those of you unfamiliar with Vidos as well, is during the main phase, if a card is in the field zone, you get a quick effect to target a card in the field zone, special summon it, and then destroy it. And then if you can add to your hand or set an Ashen continuous trap card from the deck. Now we have 2, so you've got more uses for being able to get that. But if this card is sent from your opponent's field to the graveyard, you get to destroy all monsters on the field. So being able to regain the resource of your boss monster can be very, very important. But obviously you don't need to always bounce back the Vidos. You're probably going to want to bounce back some of your other opponent's cards. And then, of course, the field spell is so important, so playing 3 of this and then 1 terraforming. It's a shame the deck has to revolve around the field spell so much, but face-up special summon monsters your opponent controls become pyro during your turn only, and you can only use each of the following effects once per turn. During the end phase, you can target 1 Obsidian Ashen City in your graveyard, place it on the bottom of the deck, and then draw 1 card. If this card is in the field zone, is destroyed or banished, you get to special summon an Ashen monster from the deck. So that's the great success and the synergy, of course, with the brand new Shaman. Is Shaman will put them back into the deck for you, and then, of course, and then add 1 from the deck, and then the Obsidian City will put themselves back into the deck. And then again, another one of the cards that you really wish was an Ashened card, but unfortunately isn't, is Awakening of Vidos. This is your most important single card to get your combos going. And what I mean by that is you activate this during the draw phase, you place an Obsidian City from the deck face up into the either field zone. And then if your opponent controls a card, which they will do if you give them the Obsidian City, you get to add a level 5 or higher Dark Pyro, which is your way to search out the Vidos. And then you have the ability for the rest of the turn, you are locked out of Pyros from the extra deck, and specifically from the main deck as well. But you're getting the Vidos, you've got your straight away your 1 card card combo, because then your Vidos will go to your opponent's board. It can then give you the ability to search out a field spell, destroy the field spell will trigger in the end phase, and you're basically just getting all your synergy of everything you need. And then we've got 3 of the brand new Extinguishing the Ashened. I actually think this is better than the Rekindling, but Rekindling is just as good anyway. So this one, you send a Dark Pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard, very easily done. And then you can add a level 5 or higher Pyro monster from your graveyard to the hand. So send a Vidos, add a Vidos. On the top of that, as if that wasn't enough, for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck except Pyros, which you don't really mind about too much. And you can banish this card from the graveyard to fusion summon a Pyro fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. That is where the synergy is going to come into with the additional engine of the extra deck, because you'll be able to set up that negate using this card right here. And then we've got 3 of the Rekindling of the Ashened. Now, some people might consider playing this at 2, but I still feel that it's such a good card to have at 3. So you place one of your Ashen cards that is banished or in the graveyard onto the bottom of the main deck, except itself. And the reason it specifically states main deck is it means you can't recycle any of your Ashen fusion monster, which currently we have 1. Then you get to target one effect monster your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn. Unfortunately, they are hard once per turn, but if you activate one during your turn, you can activate one during your opponent's turn as well. The artwork is pretty badass. You've got the new fusion monster on there, and then of course you've got Vidos, the brand new Dragon of Endless Darkness in the background as well. So really kind of cool in order to be able to recycle some of your Ashen cards. That's where, if you don't want to play Pot of Prosperity, you could very easily, arguably, play Allure of Darkness as well, just to get a little bit more utility out of this. But the fact it lets you put back your Banish or your Graveyard is really important. Then, of course, you've got the 1 Ashened of Eternity, which is the old trap card, and then 1 Ashened to Endlessness. So during your main phase, you can fusion summon a Pyro fusion monster during the main phase, sorry, not your main phase. You can fusion summon 1 Pyro fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from either field as material, including Vidos, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction. And if you do, it gains 500 attack for each material used. You can banish this card and 1 Dark Pyro monster from the graveyard. All monsters your opponent controls become Pyro until the end of the turn. You can only use each effect once per turn. Now, obviously, the idea is, if you've got the field spell in rotation, you don't really want to be activating this during your turn. You're going to want to use this graveyard effect during your opponent's turn, and then you've got a set Super Poly ready to go. If that wasn't enough, what's really cool about this is it will, in certain scenarios, let you get into the tech from the extra deck, but more times than not, you're probably going to be going into the Vidos, the Dragon of Endless Darkness, because you'll be able to use the Vidos that you've given your opponent to do so. And then, of course, we do play Triple Fusion Arraignment. Now, the reason we are playing this is you reveal a fusion monster in your extra deck and special summon one of the fusion materials whose name is specifically mentioned on it from your extra deck or graveyard. So when your Vidos is in the graveyard, you bring it back to the board because you can reveal your Vidos, the Dragon of Endless Darkness. But what else can you also reveal that is extra super spicy? And this is where Charlie comes into play, so massive shout out to him. You can reveal Gaia Prominence, the Fierce Force. It is a Pyro, and it lists specifically Gaia Blaze, the Force of the Sun, which is this synchro right here. So, what you can do is you can activate the Fusion Arraignment, reveal this, special summon this. Then, this requires specifically Blaze, the Force of the Sun, and 1 face-up monster you control. So this will then allow you to use any of your fusion spells, including your Extinguishing the Ashened, in order to use the Gaia Blaze Force on the field and then any other monster you control to make you the Prominence. For those of you unfamiliar with what the Prominence does, when your opponent activates a monster effect in their hand, Nibiru, or graveyard, Perinthian Princess, quick effect, you can discard 1 monster, negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. When this attacking card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can target 1 fire monster in your graveyard and special summon it. You can only use each effect once per turn. Now, unfortunately, it does only recycle fires, and all of your Ashened are dark, but it is part and part of it. And then, of course, we are playing the Gaia Blaze. Now, you can actually correctly synchro summon this, because what you've got to remember is when you use Fusion Arraignment, the monster that you summon cannot attack and its effects, if any, are negated, which is why you're going to be bringing back your Vidos in order to use it as fusion material or anything else. But this one is, if this attacking card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, it can make a second attack in a row. And then once per turn at the end of the battle phase, you can target 1 fire monster in your graveyard up to the number of monsters this card destroyed by battle this turn, which it can technically destroy up to 2, and then add them back to the hand. So if you wanted to, you could recycle Ash Blossoms, but you also have the ability to recycle your Gaia the Prominence if you've already gone through it, which is why we are playing 2 of this in the extra deck, because the idea is that you'll be able to make one through synchro plays using this little guy right here. So again, all of these are massive shout out to Charlie, but the idea is of the candle is it is a Pyro Tuner effect monster, and if it is added from the deck to the hand except by drawing it, you get to special summon it. You can only use each effect once per turn. And then once per chain, up to 3 times per turn, if a monster is sent to your graveyard, is set during a damage step, you can increase this card's level or decrease it by 1. Now, keeping in mind that this is a level 7, so all you need to do is decrease it by 1, and you can actually hard synchro with, of course, your Ashened Priestess in order to hard make it. So that's why you're still playing this. You can also play other synchro monsters in the extra deck should you want to, because you have access to this. And the way you're going to be able to very easily add it and then ditch it is, of course, off of Bonfire. Now, if you don't have Bonfire, because this is the stupidly expensive card for this deck, then you can cut it out completely. That's probably where you'd cut out the candle and not rely on actually hard summoning something like your Gaia Blaze. So that's something to keep in mind. You can also still add this off of the Infernal Flame Banshee, so it's not completely dead, but it does take away a little bit of synergy inside the deck for you if you don't want to be cashing out on your bonfires. So on top of that, even if you don't adapt its level, as long as you don't adapt its level, you can use it as rank 4 material as well, so you're getting the synergy of both. So that's your bonfires. If you don't want to play bonfires, you can very easily take them out for Ash Blossoms. For the board breakers and hand traps, I decided to go with Imperms, Super Polys, and then Prosperities just for a bit more consistency. You would adapt these as you see fit, but Super Poly, in my opinion, is an absolute must. Like, your extra deck can use and abuse your opponent's board, so being able to utilize a card like Super Poly that your opponent cannot respond to is near second to none. And then with Imperm, you're not triggering stuff like Talents, which will be running around in a 15 hand trap format, but it does give you a couple of different options as well. So that's it for the entire main deck. I'm now going to show you through the exact extra deck in as much detail as possible. So we'll start off with the brand new fusion monsters. Let's start off with the Mac Daddy Vidos, the Dragon of Endless Darkness. So this one specifically requires Vidos and then 2 or more level 9 or lower Pyro monsters. Now, unfortunately, if your opponent does play or are utilizing Link monsters, you won't be able to use it because it needs to be level 9 or lower, which is a big sad. But then that's, of course, where your Embers of the Ashened will come into play, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So if this card is fusion summoned, well, before that, it cannot be destroyed by card effects. Nice success. So it means if you do Vidos and nuke the board, this won't get destroyed. Also, your opponent cannot target it with monster effects. Great success. If this card is fusion summoned, you can destroy all spells and traps your opponent controls. When your opponent activates a card or effect on the field, quick effect, you can send one face-up Ashen card you control to the graveyard, destroy that card. You can only use each effect once per turn. Now, obviously, the sad thing about it is it doesn't negate the effect, it will only just destroy it, but it does give you that ability to get a bit of board removal. On top of that, it is like a mini towers that it can't be destroyed but can't be targeted by monster effects, so it does give you that balance of everything you need, and it means it will still stay around even when Vidos leaves the board off your opponent's field, and you're able to destroy all of their monsters and then destroy all of their back row. And then, of course, the other brand new one is Embers of the Ashened. So this requires 2 Pyro monsters, so this is where it gets a lot more easier to use Super Poly if your opponent is utilizing Link monsters as well. If it is fusion summoned, you get to target a field spell in your graveyard and add it to the hand. And at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's Pyro monster, which during your turn it will do, you can destroy that opponent's monster. And if it is your turn, you can make a second attack in a row. Doesn't need to be on a monster, it can just attack again, which is really, really important. That's why you might consider seeing people play stuff like Chicken Game, maybe even Necro Valley if you wanted to spice it up, because you do have that access of being able to recycle your field spells as and when you need it. And then, of course, for the other fusions, you've got the one Gaia Prominence, pretty much already talked about that one. And then your generic Super Poly targets, if you can't set up the Pyro play or anything else, you've got your Garura and your Mud Dragon. And then we've got 2 synchros of the Gaia Blaze. Now, the reason for this is obviously like one will be summoned out of the extra deck through the fusion arraignment, but then the other one can actually be synchro summoned, which will give you a bit more utility if you want to recycle something like your Kandar as well. But more times than not, you're probably just going to be using it as a beat stick to get rid of 2 more or attack twice. And then for the rest of the extra deck, of course, we do play the one Infernal Flame Banshee. Keep in mind that this and, of course, the Prominence are by Pyro, which is why you can still utilize them even under the Pyro lock. Great success. Infernal Flame Banshee, use this, search out your Vidos, search out anything you really need to. And then just the baseline Link monsters, to be honest. Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, Heater, Promethean Princess, and then, of course, your Amber Whale. So these can be adapted to whatever you want, but the idea is you've got your standard fire climb. Yes, that's probably going to be more effective when you do get the Kandar into rotation, and it's also going to be more effective if your opponent puts an Ash Blossom in the graveyard, but then you also do have access to go into a Nightmare Phoenix generically, and then use that as your fire monster to get into Heater, and then work your way up into a Promethean Princess. But you can take these out to be stuff like IPs into Underworld Goddesses. The idea is you just need to be very careful because you have more cards now that are going to Pyro lock you in the form of the Awakening of Vidos and the Extinguishing of the Ashened, that you do need to be able to utilize more Pyros from your extra deck so that you don't completely lock yourself out before you try and go any further. So that's pretty much it for the entire profile. I hope this has given you a couple of ideas on your own build. I do like where this is going. Now, I know it's not the most broken TCG exclusive ever, but I never expected it to be. I expected this to be one of those fans that liked the whole Pompeii, and then also like Dark Souls would be attracted to the artworks of this deck as well. And I really do like where they're going with it. I do like the inclusion of the new fusion monsters. Yes, some of them are a little bit more restrictive than maybe you would like to, but I still really do like where it's going. I love the new cards. I actually think they're really good for what the deck is doing. I just feel a lot of people are expecting the new cards to be, oh my god, this is broken. It's going to be like double agent for spirals. Whereas what you need to remember is the OCG still don't have these, and more times than not, the OCG will hold back the best card for their exclusive reveal, and that's where it does get really spicy. But yeah, that's it for the entire Ashened build for now. I hope this has given you a couple of ideas. If you do have any questions, by all means, comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.